Solely, why do we encounter disturbing beings?
I love that question because it's really personal. What is disturbing to one may not be disturbing to another. I've mentioned before when I first started acknowledging that I was a medium, I didn't know that word, and that I was given a gift of accessing other frequencies, whatever you want to call that. It scared the crap out of me. I mean, I've told these funny stories. Well, you get used to it. There was nothing dangerous coming at me. But it might be interesting at this juncture to bring in a psychological gift, tool, adjunct to personality that humans have called disgust sensitivity. And this fascinates me because we are programmed to be disgusted with things that are bacteriological, viral, digging in garbage cans. We're supposed to be grossed out by that. It's a survival tool. Now, it's also a cultural thing. Some cultures will not touch the dead. Some cultures believe this and that about bacteria or not. I don't need to go on. You know what I'm talking about. It can be a local custom, a local idea. But I think certain of us, we're programmed in different ways for that. Here's an example. I love dealing with dead stuff. I have a whole cabinet of curiosities, little museum in the house filled with fake fake skulls, stuffed heads, all this bizarre stuff. But I could never be a mortician like I wanted to be because my sense of smell is so acute. I almost died in India. I thought I was going to die. I smell everything. I'm obsessed with perfumes and scents, et cetera, et cetera. I love the smell of cow manure, but I don't like the smell of horse manure. Go figure. Now, where does this come from? And why are we disgusted by certain things and not other things? I think it's a cultural thing, but we're not supposed to, as human race, live dealing with the dead all the time. Because if it's dead, it's done, right? It's in the past. Now, my obsession with it is very much like a mortician's. I won't get into that. But I'll read to you guys some pretty interesting things out of the Reality Pirate Chronicles, Volume 2, starting on page 107, about supernatural beings that I've encountered that were scary or icky. Now, we can encounter these in dreams. We can encounter them just imagining it. It can be internally or externally generated. Other people talk about it. You see a scary movie, your program. I don't need to go on about that either. But let me read some of this to you. The first article is called Psychopomp. One of, if not the most disturbing supernatural being I have encountered, reminds me of the Dementors out of the Harry Potter. J.K. Rowling was apparently in touch with some deep stuff to create that magnificent series, teaching kids that not all is good and most things have a dark side. It's going to be hard. Protect yourself. That said, she empowered kids with the promise of what we in Theosophy recognize as Ray 7, ceremonial order and ritual magic. That's what we're in now. It's the age of Aquarius. It also rules sexuality. Look at all the stuff coming up about that. And the age of Aquarius will embody more of these energies as more and more Ray 7 souls come into bodies. But I digress. If it was a dream, it was a dark one. If it was an otherworldly sort out of body experience, that would make more sense. I don't know. I still don't know for sure. But I recall one rainy winter afternoon when I lived at my farm in Olympia, with darkness rolling in about 3:30 as it did in Western Washington. At my farm, I'd often take a nap. after feeding in the afternoon, which was that time. This was one of those days. The only way to make sense of this is to tell you that I felt drugged, but I didn't drink or do any drugs. What was going on? That wasn't my thing, but I felt drugged. I recall lying down feeling woozy, dizzy, but in a way that felt like rolling in and out of my physical body. I recall feeling like I was surrounded with a pressure that smelled blacker than black. As weird as it sounds, all my senses seemed to be running together and I couldn't move, but I felt unafraid, irrationally unafraid. So, since I intuited, I was now in the first astral level that we call hell. It was as though time was frozen and I saw me looking at me in a third or fourth person way. I became aware of a depressingly foreboding energy field grabbing at my gut, the third chakra, which is the chakra of emotion. I then both felt and saw and heard a voice. It was all happening at the same time, but it seemed to be saying words backwards as I saw a dark field appear in a mirror across from me. The reversal of energy field straightened out, but turned everything upside down. I felt nauseous. I mean, really sick. The voice in sight straightened out, and this is what it said. Tempted by my lower nature, I fell apart at the seams, tearing sinew from bone. My aura dissipated in the winds of time. Naught but the loss enveloped my soul, bereft of succor, absent of joy. The drawing down of lunar darkness soaked dry the intended potion, leaving me hanging by a thread cast off from the garment left behind. No one heard me. No one sought me out, not even my own soul. Darkness ensued, it continued, and billowed the sails of discontent, voyaging upon dank seas ripe with the sins of mankind. My lower nature knew me better than my soul and caressed the emptiness within with promises of a death relieving act of contrition. Naught behind it, nothing ahead. The creaking silence of the eternal present promised nothing, nothing at all. I leave you now with a warning that those who hate you seek not your demise, but they seek your light. Those who bother you request your divine intervention. My lower nature forgot this, even as it was pressed upon my blackening heart. No one came to save me, for saving was the grace denied those refusing to save themselves with forgiveness. I reach out to you now from the bowels of this forlorn place, still unforgiving of myself and locked in a place with no key. Heed well these words, for I will never utter them again. I am not allowed. Seek continually the tiniest glimmer of light and hope, for even that shall gain strength with your attention upon it. I leave you now. How did I even recall this? I wrote it all down immediately after exiting that awful place, sat up in bed, grabbed a pen and paper that was always there. I mean, I felt voraciously hungry and parched. Clearly, I was taken to that lower astral, to hell, to be given a message. It felt like a ghost from Ebenezer Scrooge in the Christmas Carol. I looked at the bedside clock to see only 2 minutes had passed, in this reality at least. I felt like the experience was hours long. It was awful, just awful. It was intense. I never clearly saw this poor soul who had damned himself to that astral realm called hell out of guilt and the choice not to forgive his human frailties. He just seemed like a tar pit figure. I mean, does that make sense? Can you see that? That was by far the most disconcerting being that I have ever met. So after I wrote this, I thought that was just awful. And the nausea that I felt, it reminds me now, and you may encounter this if y'all are Ghostbusters, you're going into haunted places, you will be hit with a psychic radiation. And that radiation can hurt you because humans are not made to endure that for long. You're just not. I don't go and de-ghost places anymore. It's just not at my advancing age. I just don't do it. But when you see people on TV, my favorite one, Zach, the Aries alpha male, this fearless guy who's been horribly affected by so much of what I call this psychic radiation, he continues. But this can be permanent. This can be permanent damage. So when I had this experience, I was affected and effected to remember it without being in a place where this being could so called do harm. What do you think of that?
That's amazing and scary. And yet, what I wonder is why these experiences happen. Like, what should you do after something that's so scary?
I have learned after 50 years of this that when a being comes with a message, give the message out. So I published it and I'll talk about it because that helps them. And I'm telling you, the idea of purgatory didn't come in until the 1200s. I think it was St. Thomas Aquinas that invented purgatory. Well, you're not good enough to go to heaven. You're not bad enough to go to hell. So you're going to have to hang out until you do enough to where you can prove you go either place. It's a dogma of the church. It's not real. I call purgatorial souls, and I've met and seen some of them. They believe that. They're not ready to go on, and usually it's afraid they're not good enough. So these fears that we have are very early implants from religious dogma. I believe in the Catholic Church. I'm part of that, but there's much of the dogma I don't. I know when it was created, but it's part of our culture. It's part of our culture. And I think the only thing to so called do is to say, how do you feel? How do you feel? And how do I know I didn't just make this up? Well, I've addressed this before, and the way that I know I'm not making something up is I can't see what comes next. If I'm like writing a story with a reality pirate or Persephone's pup or something like that, I can create in my mind. It's a different part of the brain. I can feel it's in a different part of my brain. If this is an intuitive, etheric experience, I feel it in my frontal brain. But I don't know if that's just me, but that's also where, let's call it the sixth chakra, the ajna center in between the eyebrows, straight in the back there. All this is neurological in a way. In order to have these experiences, you have to be, I'll say, pre-programmed in a way. I know kids that are budding mediums. God, it's hard. It's like learning how to ski with no lessons, But I think that's the best thing, Linda, that you can do is how do you feel and what should I do with this?
How did that psychopump experience make you feel? If you're an empath, are you able to feel the feelings of these entities?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm used to this. I mean, I've been having these experiences since I was a child, and I'm now working for many, many years, very protected by my own doing body code, getting rid of imprints, implants, so to speak, my work that I have done, being in the Rosicrucian order, uh, the church. There's all different kind of things, but you have to figure out what works for you, what works. But these experiences are real, but they're not physical.
What makes something real?
It's a good question. I don't quite know how to answer that because if if you come to this house that we live in, you may see something in the corner of your eye splash by, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's Sir Serval, the serval cat. He's here all the time. Or it's normal to me, and that's real. But when we say real, we are honoring the five physical senses. Now, I joke and say my new age friends get on me about this, but it's not bad to be attenuated to the outside world. You need your physical senses, right? You need that. But what we are doing now in this time of ceremonial magic of Ray 7 that started to come in 1675, it's been that long. We are learning the balance factor that we also have the internal worlds. That's the divine feminine. And everybody's got that. So it'll take some time, but I think it's an individual thing. But if you do this, if you think you can do this through drugs and alcohol, maybe you can, but you are going to pay a huge price for that. There are beings that protect every kind of drug and that protect alcohol that represent, they are archetypal beings, and you may encounter them and you may not come back.
So you're best off to find ways to get comfortable without the aid of these drugs.
Well, that's just me because I hate that stuff. You know, I do. I'm not an advocate of it. Well, you can use this for that. No, just stay away from me. The other people can help you if that's what you want to do. But we have these protective mechanisms that we need to pay attention to. And what I learned in the Rosicrucian order that I joined in 1976 is that as you evolve and mature spiritually, and your physical body becomes more attenuated to these radiative energies, you will develop more talents psychically, etherically. They're not forced. It's like giving a kindergartner physics. You don't do that, don't force that. You could pay a heavy price. Now, but I want to try. Well, so try. The rules are the ones you make up and the ones that can affect you differently depending on what culture you're in. I don't need to get into that. It's cultural anthropology. But I think there are our archetypal protections that we need to pay attention to. The physical body is very dense. It's supposed to be dense, and it's not supposed to be easy to deal with these other energies and to then try to live in the physical body and not feel like you're batshit crazy. Been there too. Takes time. Be patient with yourself and love yourself, and just ask that things come to you in a way that you can access them. That said, why do these experiences happen? These icky ones. Why do they happen? There are all kind of entities and beings out there. And it depends on who you are, how you are. It's like a crap game. You don't know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. But for me, it's a daily occurrence. I'll read you another one that's kind of fun. I call these guys the collectors, the black blobs. This is page 110. Have you ever waited in traffic from a wreck up ahead? What happens to all the understandably negative emotions, painful feelings hanging back during and after an event? I considered just that yesterday while watching flashing lights and first responders several blocks ahead of me. Nobody needs that, is what I said. I always say that and send light and blessings to everybody. But where do all those emotions go? Energy created, indeed, never disappears. So where does it go? I passed by the scene slowly and went on my way, only to return an hour later in the opposite direction to see the cleared scene appearing as though nothing had happened. But what was that? A swirling and blurring of air revealed a funnel and a sweeping motion around the wreck area. It reminded me of fast forwarding a movie, maybe. The beings that were there were undefinable, formless, yet somehow popping in and out of form. They were both ghostly and ethereal. As I wondered in who and what they were, I heard the word collectors. Have you ever had a download phase in so quickly that you knew the message of paragraphs long information all at once? Of course you have. That's what happened. I learned that these beings had no form proper, but borrowed thought images from observers and participants as though to lend understanding about their own existence. I felt no emotion from them or human connection. I simply felt they were doing what they were created to do. The download revealed these beings as part of Ray 1, which is the destroyer aspect. That aspect ends things and cleans up things that are used and unneeded, energies that allow things to be reborn. But the old has to die. Does that make sense? There are countless numbers of these collectors, all different kind. They're magnetically drawn to battlefields, death sites, but more interestingly, anywhere that negative emotions are released in mass. They cart off or dissipate these energies. And I've never considered either the existence or necessity of these things, but now wonder what life on earth would be like without them, right? How many wars, wrecks on land, on sea, in the air, icky emotions get stuck in energy fields, poisoning locations until these collectors remove them. The world would otherwise be a thick goo of negativity, blocking and healing and illuminating the frequency of fresh forms, unless this was cleared, right? Again, these collector beings had neither form nor consciousness, save the purposeful intent and energy field of their being. It's as though they were stuck in time. So I have a part two to this I'll read to you. The last few days found me immersed in a Plutonian death and dead of energies. Something was in it. I can't explain it. But I found it more interesting than irritating. Our house cat, Sophia Montana, devised to hunt and kill two birds, three chipmunks, and two of my favorite squirrels. Not that I can tell the remaining body parts from each other, but it caused pause as I refrained from scolding her catly self. I psychically heard a voice reporting, "There are too many squirrels in this area, so we let it happen." What? Go figure. I closed the tiny terror in the house for a day and cleaned up some arterial blood sprays on the carpet and on the walls in our dressing room where she likes to hang over her kill, Gollum like with his precious. But that evening, as I passed close to that area, I psychically saw a long, shiny black, human shaped thing laying still on the kill zone. It looked like a slug with vaguely defined features. It was like a 4 foot piece of melting licorice, very weird. And I said, "May I walk through you?" And I got back a very polite, "I'd prefer you didn't." The blob responded. And as I turned into the field, I saw it was a thought form collection of ideas and beliefs from my mind representing this death ray 1 aspect. What's with all this death stuff I'm going through right now? Is with everything, this too shall pass, but it's just what it is. Maybe Pluto is doing something in my astrology chart. The next morning found neither carcass nor slimy black blog on the carpet, but welcome to my life. That's just how it works. That's how I work. So you will find yourself going through times where these unpleasant experiences might happen one after the next. Now, that can be many things. It can be that you need to chill out, to calm down, to bring some light into your life. Ask who is around. Do you have an attachment? Once again, ask for help. Ask the guidance around you. Is this necessary? Or what are you trying to show me? Now, with me, they're always challenging my disgust sensitivity. Well, you need to get better at this. If you're upset, go look at something upsetting on the internet. Don't hide yourself from it, Zoli. But that's just how I work. I don't suggest you do that. I just don't, especially if you're a kid. So what do you think about that?
What's fascinating is how each entity has a very specific purpose. It's kind of inspiring when you see how, I mean, even though at first glance, these creatures might be terrifying, but they remind me not to be so freaked out and maybe just focus on my own purpose.
Yeah. And once we look at the purpose, now I know the purpose of those beings, those collectors. They're not human and they're not here all the time, but they serve a purpose. And I don't think I wrote about this in some book, but I can't remember the name of these beings. We're in Montana. Deers get still all kind of stuff on the road, right? I saw, it was at dusk. I saw a dead deer on the side of the road that was really bloody, and hunkered down over it were these creatures that looked like a cross between a vulture and a wolf with frightening looks to them. Frightening. So they're feeding on the energetic aspect of that physical thing. I thought that is just cool and awful at the same time. It's very disconcerting. So, what I always suggest with all of us is, are you being asked to be stronger? You know how my mom says, put on your big girl panties and deal with it. Get stronger, get stronger. Come on, let's go. And I think that's part of our trip here, is that we can't allow the weakest aspect of us to control ourselves. That said, you don't need to deal with this icky stuff all the time unless you're a mortician or a Zoli or somebody that's your work. I mean, you just don't. We are the light. We live in a deep, dark, evil place where the first ray is always at work. It's always destroying something so the new can come in. The first two levels of the astral realm are interdispersed in the physical world. So you deal with stuff and you see stuff. But one of the aspects of so-called insanity is you can't cut it off and you can't tell the difference in the worlds. So get help, figure out what's going on.
Can I clarify? You said the first two levels of the astral realm are intertwined with
Yes.
Earth. So that means we're in hell.
Pretty much.
So we should just start getting used to the fact that this is all around us and, be aware of our disgust sensitivity, but also figure out why we're encountering what we're encountering.
I think the why can be important. Figure out if this is your work or not. And when I say we're in hell, the earth is a deep, dark, evil place. Why? Because it's still controlled by the demonic who want to control physical reality. That's the only purpose of the demonic, is not to lead you astray and hurt you and kill you, is to say, we control the physical world. And after the Atlantean War, we're still not back where we're supposed to be. We're just not. So what you call hell is very much here and now. As I've told you, my brother and I spent our childhood when we'd go to Europe wandering graveyards. Oh my God, the whole energy field. But the dead love psychic people. It doesn't mean that I'm morose, but for other people, it might seem morose. This little cabinet of curiosities that I've developed in the house. One day we'll do a podcast and I'll show it to you. I collect skulls because a skull, as I've told you, that's a memento mori. It means, guess what? This is inside of you. You have a skull in you, by the way, but this is what you will become eventually, because bones deteriorate very, very slowly. So I've got some clearly fake shrunken heads. I think those are really cool. I've named them and all kind of stuff like that because I ain't right. So here's the thing about shrunken heads, and they're real. Not the ones from the 1800s and everybody wanted one and people were whacking women and doing this because they're all male. So when I went to Texas Tech and studied cultural anthropology for a year before I quit, I used to quit everything. I had the best teacher I've ever had in my life. Her name was Evelyn Ina Montgomery. And Evelyn, that Dr. Montgomery had done her PhD thesis on the Shuar Indians. And I thought it was Brazil, but the Shuar are also in Ecuador. And that stimulated me to want to know about other cultures. She was the best. She was just the best. And she probably did her thesis in oh my gosh, that was 1975, 4, probably in the late 50s or 60s. So here's why shrunken heads are real. So I wrote this for you guys, and this is for entertainment purposes only. First, you have to kill somebody you hate who will not be looked for by those who did not hate him. Yes, the Shuar natives in Ecuador shrunk only male heads of warriors they believed could give them power or threaten them after death. Most tribes actually got along very well in the area, but they went on what was called headhunting raids, and that offered an opportunity to culturally permit this practice of whacking powerful warriors and decapitating them. I mean, the internet was not yet a distraction, so they had nothing else to do, right? But here's the deal. Here's how you do this. So you boil water in a pot large enough to contain the head. Hopefully, this will be outside. You remove the skin from the skull because bone doesn't shrink. Duh. And save that skull for me, by the way, I'll pay you. And you sew shut the eyelids to prevent the dead dude from seeing you and to keep them shut. And you fasten with 3 vertical sticks and a chosen thread the mouth because you don't want them telling anybody what you did. Then you boil the skin thingy for about 90 minutes. It'll be flat, right? When it's removed from the water, which is not then used for a soup base, you stuff it with small, hot stone. This begins to dry out the already shrunken skin, which is about a third smaller, right? Then, as it shrinks, you replace the hot stones with hot sand. More shrinky dinky occurs. Now, you can give the head a hot stone facial then to smooth out any wrinkles before their time. You shape it, and you shape the head to resemble somebody, actually anybody who has sewn eyes and a stick closed sewn lips. As it drives more, you will find it oh so easy to shape the head even more, which is now once again at least a third smaller than he was prior to gasping in his last breath. Easy breezy. So there we've got some disgust sensitivity. Ew. Wait a minute. That is so cool. I want to do that with maybe a deer head or, but I ain't right. But this is in Montana. We do weird stuff like this with taxidermy. If you taxidermy an animal, say you kill a cougar, and then you see the cougar on somebody's wall 2 years later, that cougar skull is not there. What the taxidermist will do is peel off the skin from the carcass, and it takes great skill to do the paws and the head. Believe me, I've tried. It is very difficult. And with the head, there is a form that you fit it over. If it's just to be maybe a mount, European mount is just the skull that you use. You can use that too. But you shape it over that because bone doesn't work. So in the cabinet of curiosities, I've got 4 or 5 of them and they're named certain things. But in the 1800s, to discuss sensitivity, this was the time of mediumship when the masters had decided, let's try to and they were flat ass wrong again. And I just have to laugh at, like, what are you thinking, you bunch of boys? What are you thinking? So they thought, let's take the populations of Britain and the Northern West and say, this is how you can have seances and you can meet the dead and see the dead and this and that. So that stuff became very popular. So did cabinets of curiosities because you didn't have the internet, you didn't have a TV. You go over to somebody's house for dinner, and hopefully you weren't eating shrunken heads, but they would have maybe a big china cabinet, a big chest. Some who were probably as insane as me had an entire room. But they would show you things. This is what I found here. This is what I found there. And it's anything from taxidermied stuff to swords to things from other cultures to kind of icky stuff to get the ew factor. There is also cool stuff in there. But that's what was done at that time. Now, the masters soon realized that this didn't do shit. Nobody was, they were just interested in the phenomena. People wanted to get information from dead people. People wanted to see the stuff. They wanted this and that. Nobody went spiritual on it, even though the Theosophical Society was going pretty strong at that time. You know, Colonel Alcott and Blavatsky, late 1800s, early 1900s. So that was the big woo-woo era. That was it. Now, the masters have calmed down, drunk some of their oolong tea, and they're thinking, maybe we'll let people do it through meditation and prayer and service. I think that's going to be much better. But there continue to be demonologists like I am, people interested in this stuff.